At the pregnancy checkup, the doctor, pale and shaky, asked, "Who was your previous doctor?" I responded, "My husband, he's an obstetrician too." The doctor immediately panicked and said, "We need proof now." Being pregnant, at a routine checkup, and your new doctor, her face ghost white, looks at you and demands, "Who was your previous doctor?" When I told her it was my own husband, an OBGYN, she visibly panicked, her eyes wide with terror, and all she could say was, "We need proof, right now." There's something inside you that absolutely shouldn't be there. That's how my nightmare began. I'd gone to a new obstetrician for what I thought was a routine checkup. She was staring at the ultrasound screen, then at me, her face draining of all color. "Who handled your previous checkups?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "My husband, doctor," I replied, trying to sound casual. "He's an OBGYN too." "I need to run some tests on you immediately," she blurted out, her voice now laced with alarm. "This object I'm seeing, it shouldn't be there." I was in complete shock. My mind raced. This pregnancy felt different, not just because it was my first, but because of Jacob, my husband. He treated me like a rare, fragile piece of porcelain, terrified I might crack. Jacob was an OBGYN, and at first, I thought it was a blessing. No need to find another doctor. He handled everything, my vitamins, meal schedules, even the exact temperature of the AC in our bedroom. In the beginning, I felt cherished, loved. But as I entered my 7th month, that attentive care started to feel less like devotion and more like surveillance. Jacob insisted on performing all the ultrasounds himself, in his private study. "For privacy, honey," he'd said once. "I don't want another man looking at you." And I, so in love, found it romantic. But there was another shadow, one that truly unsettled me, my mother-in-law, Carol. Carol was the picture of a perfect matriarch in public. But alone, she was different. She'd come over almost daily with a strange-smelling herbal tonic, insisting I drink it. "It's for the health of the baby," she'd purr. But what truly made my skin crawl was the way she touched my belly. It wasn't the loving caress of a doting grandmother. It felt more like an appraisal. "I wonder how much this grandson asset will be worth," Carol murmured one afternoon, her eyes fixed on my stomach with a cold, calculating focus. "He's our most valuable asset." Asset, not a blessing. Not a gift. An asset. Like stocks. Or real estate. The unease inside me grew into a gnawing fear. Jacob always dismissed it, claiming my hormones were making me overly sensitive. But I knew. I wasn't hallucinating. Something was deeply, terribly wrong. I needed confirmation. A neutral perspective. Someone else. With trembling hands, I made an appointment at a clinic on the outskirts of the city. I used a fake name, paid in cash, and sought out Dr. Hayes, a maternal-fetal medicine specialist highly recommended on a mother's forum. I lied to Jacob, telling him I was going to a reunion with old college friends. The guilt gnawed at me, but the fear was far greater. Dr. Hayes's clinic was bright, clean, completely different from Jacob's somber study. The staff was friendly. I relaxed a little. Dr. Hayes was a middle-aged woman, professional and serene. I explained I just wanted a second opinion for peace of mind, adding that I'd like a 4D ultrasound for a baby album. She smiled understandingly. "Well, let's take a look at that baby," she said kindly. I lay back, the cool gel spread on my belly. A black and white image began to form on the large screen. The baby's heartbeat filled the room, strong and rhythmic. "He's very active," I whispered, tears of relief welling in my eyes. The baby was healthy. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Dr. Hayes smiled. "Yes, Lucy. The baby is very healthy. A strong heart, a straight spine. Perfect." She moved the transducer, measuring the head circumference and femur length. I started to relax, truly enjoying the moment. But suddenly, the smile vanished from Dr. Hayes's face. She moved the transducer again, to a spot far away from the image of my baby. Her expression turned serious. She pressed a few buttons, enlarging an image on her own monitor. Then, with a swift, decisive motion, she turned off my screen. "What's wrong, doctor?" My heart began to pound. "Is our baby okay?" "Your baby is fine," Dr. Hayes replied, but her voice was strained. She put down the ultrasound transducer and looked intently at me. A suffocating silence filled the room. "Who is the doctor who examined you previously?" she asked, her voice low but firm. I was bewildered by the sudden shift in atmosphere. "My husband, Dr. Jacob Reed. He's also an OB-GYN. And his mother, Carol, has been helping me a lot." Dr. Hayes remained silent. She looked back at her monitor, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She was pale. She rose from her seat, her hands trembling slightly. "Lucy," she said, her voice now urgent, alarmed. "I need to run some tests on you immediately. A full blood panel, and I'm scheduling an MRI for you as soon as possible." Panic flared within me. "Why, doctor? What is it? Is it cancer? A tumor?" She quickly shook her head. "No, it's not that. I don't know exactly what it is. But this object I'm seeing shouldn't be there. It doesn't belong inside your uterus." "What object, doctor? Please explain." I sat up, despite the ultrasound gel still on my belly. A coldness, far more intense than any gel, spread through me. Dr. Hayes took a deep breath, trying to contain her alarm for my sake. She turned the monitor toward me. "Your baby is healthy. Look here," she said, pointing to the image of my peacefully curled-up fetus. "But here," she moved the image, pointing to a spot near my uterine wall, quite close to the baby. There was a small, dense, oddly shaped shadow. It was precise, almost like a tiny metallic capsule, in stark contrast to the biological tissues surrounding it. "What is that?" I whispered in horror. "That's the problem," Dr. Hayes said frankly. "I don't know. It's definitely not part of your anatomy, nor is it any medical device I'm familiar with. It's not an IUD. It's not an implant. It's a foreign body, Lucy. An artificial object." I stared at the shadow. "I've never had surgery. I've never had anything put inside me." "That's what worries me," Dr. Hayes said, turning off the ultrasound machine. "Your husband, Jacob, is an OB-GYN. There's no way he would have missed this on the ultrasounds. It's quite obvious, if you know what to look for." If you know what to look for, the words hit me like a physical blow. It meant Jacob knew. His attentiveness. His prohibition on seeing other doctors. All those ultrasounds he'd done himself. It wasn't to protect my privacy. It was to protect that object. "I need a sample of your blood," Dr. Hayes said, now in full professional mode. "I want to check for inflammatory markers, any heavy metals being released into your bloodstream, and we need that MRI. But we have to be very careful." "Doctor." Dr. Hayes looked me directly in the eyes. "You must not, under any circumstances, mention this to your husband or your mother-in-law." "But why?" "Because if your husband knows about this and has been hiding it from you, you could be in grave danger. I don't know what the purpose of this object is, but it was placed there deliberately. We must assume a worst-case scenario." Dr. Hayes scheduled my MRI at a different hospital, under a fake name, on the pretense of a nutritional consult. She drew my blood and sent me home. "Act as if nothing happened," she warned me. "Watch your husband. Listen. Don't give away your fear." The drive home was a blur, a waking nightmare. Every little kick from the baby now felt like a terrifying reminder of the other invader inside me. The asset. Was this what Carol meant? When I got home, it was already evening. The house was quiet. Jacob wasn't back from work yet. Carol wasn't there either. I took a quick shower, washing away the remnants of the gel, trying to calm my racing heart. I had to act normal. Jacob arrived late, looking tired. He gave me a kiss on the forehead. How was the reunion? It was good, honey. A lot of people came, I replied, struggling to sound casual. Jacob smiled, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Don't wear yourself out. Remember, you're carrying precious cargo. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my side, my back to Jacob, feigning sleep. I felt his every move. Around 2 a.m., Jacob must have thought I was sound asleep. He slipped out of bed silently, making almost no noise. I held my breath. Jacob took his phone and left the room, closing the door carefully. I waited a few seconds before sliding out of bed. I opened the door a crack. Jacob hadn't gone far. He was standing in front of his private study upstairs, the door slightly ajar. I could hear his voice, a tense whisper. She went to see another doctor, Mom. Jacob whispered. My heart stopped. Yeah, just a cheap 4D ultrasound. She said she wanted to see the baby's face. No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's too dumb to suspect. There was a pause. Jacob was listening to the person on the other end of the line. I knew exactly who it was. Carol, of course. I checked it last night while she was sleeping, Jacob continued, a hint of irritation in his voice now. Don't worry. The object's position is still secure. The pregnancy hasn't shifted it. Everything is stable. Another pause. Yes, Mom. I'll extract it myself during the delivery. I'll make it all look like a normal complication. Then we can take care of the rest. Jacob let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Of course, I still have Richard Franklin's inheritance documents. Nothing has changed. It's all going according to your plan. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. The object. The delivery. Richard Franklin's inheritance documents, my father. It was all connected. My husband, Jacob, and my mother-in-law, Carol, were conspiring against me. And the key to everything was inside my uterus, right next to my unborn child. I crawled back into bed. My body was ice cold, despite the stuffy air in the room. I pulled the covers up to my chin, my eyes fixed on the closed door. Behind that door, in his study, my husband had just confirmed my worst fears. He wasn't just a controlling husband. He was a conspirator, a liar, and maybe a future murderer. And he was working for his mother. Richard Franklin's inheritance documents. What did this have to do with my long-dead father? My father had been a successful businessman, but he had never flaunted his wealth. He lived modestly, and I had always believed my inheritance consisted solely of this house and enough funds for my education. I was obviously very, very wrong. I forced myself to breathe evenly. I couldn't let Jacob know I was awake. When he returned to the room 15 minutes later, he moved silently, like a predator. I felt the dip in the mattress as he lay down. I could feel his breath on the back of my neck, steady and calm. I was sleeping next to a monster. And the monster was sleeping soundly. The morning brought a new kind of terror. How could I act normal? How could I let Jacob touch me, give me vitamins, smile at me? But I had to. My life, and my baby's life, depended on it. I smiled through breakfast and swallowed the vitamins Jacob gave me, then quietly threw them up in the bathroom. I needed to get out of this house. I needed answers. The only person who might know anything was my late mother's sister, my Aunt Martha. Aunt Martha was a simple, shy woman who had always kept her distance from me after my father's death. I had always thought it was because she was uncomfortable with our wealth. Now, I suspected it was because she knew something. I waited for Jacob to leave for the hospital. "I have a surgery." "Might be late," he said, kissing my forehead. I resisted the urge to wipe his lips from my skin. As soon as Jacob's car was out of sight, I rushed. I didn't dare take my phone, fearing Jacob was tracking me. I grabbed the car keys and drove to Aunt Martha's house in the suburbs. It was small, with a well-tended garden, a stark contrast to my own large, cold home. Aunt Martha was shocked to see a pregnant me on her doorstep. "Lucy, my goodness, what is it?" "Auntie, I need to talk to you. It's very important." Aunt Martha let me in and made me some tea, her hands trembling. "You're as pale as a ghost." "Jacob, has he hurt you?" I wasn't expecting that question. "You never liked Jacob." Aunt Martha looked away. "It's not that. It's just the way he looks at you. The way your father used to look at your mother." I was confused, but I didn't have time. "Auntie, I don't have much time. I need to know about my father and a woman named Carol." Aunt Martha's teacup rattled so violently that tea spilled out. She set it down with a clatter, her face paler than mine. "Why are you saying that name?" she whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "You shouldn't, she's my mother-in-law." "That's why I'm here, Auntie. Please. Carol is Jacob's mother." "What do you know?" Aunt Martha let out a shaky sigh and began to cry, a low, repressed sob. "Stay away from that woman, Lucy. You have to get away from her." "I can't, Auntie. I live with them. She's my husband's mother. Please, tell me." Aunt Martha took a deep, shuddering breath. "Carol is not a good person. Years ago, before your mother died, she was your father's personal assistant. She was very smart, very capable, but also cunning. Your father trusted her a great deal." "What happened?" "She was obsessed, not with your father, but with his fortune. Your father, Richard, was a good man, but he was also paranoid. He hid his fortune everywhere. He didn't trust banks. He didn't trust anyone." Aunt Martha continued, "One night, your father found Carol in his study, trying to open his personal safe. Not the normal safe, but the one that held his secret asset ledgers. Your father was furious. He fired her on the spot." "Is that all?" I asked. "No. Carol didn't take it well. She threatened your father." I was in the next room. I heard her screaming, "You humiliate me, Richard. Your fortune should have been mine. One day I will get it. One way or another, I will take everything you have." I was silent. Richard Franklin's inheritance documents, Carol had been planning this for decades. "Auntie," I said softly, "my father's inheritance. What do you know about it?" "Jacob and Carol keep mentioning it." Aunt Martha looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Your father was eccentric, Lucy. After your mother died, he became even more paranoid. He said he had to protect his legacy. He created a very strange will. He said his main inheritance, valued at billions of dollars, couldn't be accessed without a special key." "What key? Where is it?" "I don't know. He just said he hid it in the safest place in the world, inside his most cherished treasure. Something people would never steal because they wouldn't know it was there." I looked down at my belly. "My baby?" Aunt Martha quickly shook her head. "No, dear. Not his grandchild. This was long before you were married." Aunt Martha looked at me with horror, as if she had just realized something. "Lucy, when you were about 15, did your father take you to a private clinic overseas, in Geneva?" He had said it was for a minor medical procedure, some kind of new vaccine. The memory hit me like a physical blow. I remembered the clinic in Switzerland. They had put me under full anesthesia. My father said it was to strengthen my immune system. This object I'm seeing shouldn't be there, I swayed. Oh my God, Auntie. The object, it's inside me. Aunt Martha let out a small cry. He implanted it in you. Your own father implanted the key inside his daughter. And Carol knew, I whispered. That's why she made Jacob become an OBGYN, to marry me, to get me pregnant. I grabbed my aunt's arm. What do I do? They're planning to cut it out of me when I give birth. Aunt Martha was panicking. You have to go to the police. And tell them what? That my husband is too attentive? That my father implanted something in my body? They'll think I'm crazy. I knew I needed more than just a story. I needed proof. And I needed a powerful ally. Auntie, think. My father must have left other clues. Who was his lawyer? I don't know. He changed lawyers constantly. He trusted no one. Think again, Auntie. There must have been one. Aunt Martha closed her eyes tightly, trying to remember. Wait, there was one. He mentioned him only once. He wasn't a corporate lawyer. He was young, a rookie back then. Your father said he was the only honest man he'd ever met. The only one not blinded by money. His name was Alexander Vance. Yes, Alexander Vance. Your father said only Vance could execute his secret will. Only he knew how it worked. Alexander Vance, I repeated. I have to find him. I left Aunt Martha's house, my mind racing. I had a name, Alexander Vance. But I also had a new terror. The key was inside me. My own father had put it there, turning me into a walking safe deposit box, a target for anyone greedy enough to want his fortune. And now the wolf was already in my house. I had to get home before Jacob became suspicious. I had to act normal. But before heading home, I stopped at a small convenience store and bought a cheap burner phone. I wasn't taking any chances. That night was the longest torture of my life. I had to smile at Jacob. I had to let Carol, who had stopped by for dinner, stroke my belly. Such a healthy baby, Carol said with a sweet smile. We have to take good care of him. I wanted to throw up. I just nodded and smiled. I knew I needed tangible proof. Jacob's confession I had overheard on the phone wasn't enough. Aunt Martha's story would be dismissed as hearsay. I needed something solid to take to Alexander Vance, and I knew where to find it, Jacob's study, the one that was always locked. The opportunity came 2 days later. Jacob got an emergency call from the hospital, an urgent C-section, a patient in critical condition. He left in a hurry. Mom will come stay with you, he said before he left. I knew my window of opportunity was narrow. As soon as Jacob left, I ran to the study. The door, as always, was locked. But I had noticed Jacob didn't use a key. He used a keypad on the doorknob. I tried my birthday, fail. Jacob's birthday, fail. Our wedding anniversary, fail. Panic flared. I heard a car in the distance. Carol, I tried one last combination, something that disgusted me, my baby's due date. Click, the door opened. The pang of betrayal was profound. He had used our baby as a key. The room was cold and orderly. Behind a gloomy landscape painting on the wall, I knew there was a safe. I pulled the painting aside. As expected, a digital safe. I tried the same code, the baby's due date. Beep, the safe swung open. Inside, there was no money or jewelry, but a stack of documents labeled Richard Franklin. And on top of the pile, a thick, black Leather-bound journal. I pulled it out. It wasn't a normal journal. It was a medical log. My hand shook as I opened the first page. It was about me. In cold, clinical handwriting, Jacob had documented everything. Asterisk first page, access to subject, Lucy, established successfully. Phase 1 complete. She shows interest as expected. Asterisk pages from months later, asterisk wedding performed. Full access to subject achieved. C is very pleased. Asterisk the most chilling pages were at the end. They started with the beginning of my pregnancy. Asterisk pregnancy successfully induced after 3 attempts. Subject is unsuspecting. Location of object confirmed via handheld ultrasound. Stable, no displacement due to fetal growth. Asterisk I flipped through the pages, breathless. The most recent entry was from a few days ago, asterisk extraction plan for D-Day. Proceed with emergency C-section following staged failed induction. Claim fetal distress. Nuchal cord. Full general anesthesia will be used. This will provide sufficient time for object extraction after baby delivery. Asterisk and then a final sentence, in a different ink, as if added later, asterisk C suggests a malpractice accident with anesthesia overdose post-procedure. Cleanest way to eliminate future ownership complications. Subject does not need to survive once object is successfully retrieved. Asterisk my knees gave out and I sank to the floor. An anesthesia accident. They were planning to kill me. It wasn't just a theft. It was a cold-blooded murder plot, designed by my husband and his mother. I photographed every single page of that journal with my new phone. My heart was pounding so hard my ears were ringing. I had to put everything back. As I was about to close the safe, my eyes caught something else. An old, yellowed envelope tucked under the pile of documents. It was handwritten in a flowery script I recognized as Carol's. It was addressed to Jacob at an old dorm room address. I opened the letter. The date was from 20 years ago, when Jacob had just started medical school. My dearest Jacob, the letter began. Asterisk I know it's expensive. Mom knows. But it will be worth it. That coward of a father of yours would never understand. But we know what we're fighting for. Richard Franklin's fortune should be ours. He humiliated me, fired me, treated me like dirt just because I wanted what was rightfully mine. Now listen to me closely. I've discovered his secret. That fool Richard has implanted the key to his fortune inside his own daughter. That stupid little girl, Lucy. It's fate, Jacob. You must become a doctor. Not a surgeon. Not a pediatrician. You must become an obstetrician. It's the only way. You will make her fall in love with you. You will marry her, get her pregnant, and then you will bring home what is rightfully ours. Don't fail me, son. Don't be like your father. Do this for me. Do this for our future. All these sacrifices will be rewarded. Asterisk I stared at the letter in horror. This wasn't a new plan. This was a script written by Carol decades ago. Jacob wasn't just a bad husband. He was a tool, sharpened for 20 years by his mother, aimed directly at my heart. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a key in the front door. Asterisk click. Clack, asterisk Carol had arrived. Sooner than Jacob had said. I panicked. I scrambled to put the letter and journal back in the safe, closed it, and replaced the painting. I ran out of the study, locking the door with the same code. I made it to the living room, breathless, just as Carol walked in with grocery bags. Why, Lucy? Carol's sweet smile unfolded. Why are you panting so, dear? As if you've been running. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile onto my tight face. My hands were shaking violently behind my back. Oh, nothing, Carol. My voice sounded strange, even to my own ears. I just had a sudden craving for something sour. I was on my way to the kitchen. Why are you here so early? A knot formed in my throat. Carol was standing in the doorway, her smile like a kind porcelain mask. I brought you your favorite chicken soup, she said, holding up a grocery bag. Thank you, Carol, I replied, barely audible. I could feel Carol's gaze stripping away my every move, searching for any sign of anxiety. My hand, clutching the cheap phone in the pocket of my sweatpants, was damp with sweat. I had to act normal. I knew time was running out. Jacob's journal and Carol's letter were proof of a perfect crime. But that proof would be useless if I ended up dead on an operating table. I had to get out of this house. But how? Carol now followed me like a shadow, sleeping in the guest room next door, under the pretense of helping, watching every bite of food that entered my mouth. I knew I couldn't just run. They would catch me. I needed a plan, a distraction, and an outside ally. I thought of Dr. Hayes. I had that MRI appointment the doctor had scheduled. It was my only legitimate reason to leave the house without Jacob, but the appointment was 3 days away. I wasn't sure I had that much time. That night, after Carol had fallen asleep in the next room, I slipped into the bathroom. I locked the door, turned the faucet on full blast, and sat on the cold floor. I pulled out my burner phone. The reception in the bathroom was terrible, but I managed to send a single text message to Dr. Hayes, *he knows. His mother, too. They won't let me go. They plan to kill me during delivery. I need to get out now. *The reply came 5 minutes later, which felt like an eternity. *Stay calm, Lucy. Do not panic. Move your MRI appointment up to tomorrow morning. Tell your husband it's a recommendation from your previous doctor for a pelvic check. Come to the address I'm sending you. Do not go back home. I will have a team ready. We have to make this look medically legitimate. *A new address appeared. It wasn't the hospital where Dr. Hayes worked. It was a discreet, private clinic. I deleted the messages. One problem solved. Now, the second, Alexander Vance. I had a name, but not a face, not a number. I couldn't search for him online. I was sure Jacob and Carol were monitoring my internet activity. Then I remembered something. My father's study. The real study of Richard Franklin in the guest house out back. It was a place neither Jacob nor Carol ever went. They probably thought the room was filled with junk and bad memories. But I knew my father kept everything. In the pre-dawn hours, long before either Jacob or Carol was awake, I went to the guest house. The room smelled of dust, old paper, and wood. On the towering shelves, among thick business ledgers, I found what I was looking for, a thick, leather-bound address book. I opened it with trembling hands. Under V, I found it, Vance, Alexander. Vance and Associates Law Firm. There was an office number and a personal number. I photographed the numbers with my burner phone. Suddenly, I heard footsteps in the hall. My heart leaped into my throat. Lucy, honey? It was Jacob's voice. What are you doing in here at this hour? It's so dusty. Not good for the baby. I quickly hid the phone behind my back. I was just missing Dad, I whispered, using the truth as a lie. I just suddenly wanted to see his things. Jacob studied me for a moment, his clinical gaze assessing me. And then he smiled. The fake smile I knew so well. Come back to bed. You need your rest. You have that MRI tomorrow, right? You told me last night. I froze. Oh, yes, honey. For a pelvic check. My old doctor said it was important. Of course, Jacob said. Good idea. Mom will take you. I have a major surgery tomorrow. I can't cancel. My blood ran cold. Carol would take me. This was a disaster. My escape plan was falling apart. I couldn't get away with Carol there. But I just nodded. Okay, honey. That's fine. I would have to adapt my plan. Tomorrow would be the day of my escape, one way or another. In the morning, I got ready, my mind working at top speed. Carol was already waiting for me in the car. I went to the bathroom one last time. I pulled out my phone. I knew I had only one shot. I sent a text to Alexander Vance, to that personal number, *I am Lucy Franklin, Richard Franklin's daughter. My life is in danger. My husband Jacob and his mother Carol are trying to kill me for my father's inheritance. I have proof. I'm on my way to the future of clinics on Rosewood Street now. Please, I have nowhere else to go. Track this phone. *I sent it, then turned the phone off and hid it inside my shoe. The drive to the clinic was excruciating. Carol chatted on about how happy she was to have a grandchild soon. I just nodded along, my heart pounding so hard I was afraid Carol could hear it. We arrived at the clinic. It was small and discreet, very different from a large hospital. Carol looked at the building suspiciously. Why here? Why not a major hospital? It's a specialty clinic for pregnancy MRIs, Carol. It's safer, I repeated, using the excuse Dr. Hayes had given me. I went inside. A nurse greeted me. Lucy, please come change. My mother-in-law can wait here. I'll go with her, Carol said sharply. I'm sorry, ma'am, the nurse said firmly. Strict rules. No companions in the changing rooms or the MRI suite due to the radiation. Carol looked furious, but she couldn't argue with medical procedures. She sat in the waiting room, her eyes fixed on the door I had disappeared through. I entered the changing room. Dr. Hayes was already waiting inside. You made it, she whispered. She's out there. She won't let me go, I said, panicking. You're not going out the front door. Dr. Hayes pointed to another door behind a locker. That's the staff exit. There's a car waiting. Now give me your phone. I left it at home. Good. Now hurry. We only have about 15 minutes before she starts getting suspicious. Just as I was about to move, the clinic's fire alarm blared to life. Light smoke began to fill the hallways. There were panicked shouts from the waiting room. The changing room door burst open. It wasn't Dr. Hayes. It was Carol, her eyes burning with rage. Where do you think you're going, you little traitor? Carol snarled. She must have pulled the alarm herself. Dr. Hayes tried to intervene. Ma'am, what are you doing? This is a hospital. Carol shoved Dr. Hayes against a wall. Shut up. This is a family matter. She grabbed my arm. You think you're so clever? You'll never escape me. Jacob is waiting out back. We knew you'd try something. This was all a trap. Jacob didn't have surgery. They knew I would try to run. They had set me up. We're going to do that operation right now, Carol said, dragging me down a back hallway. I fought back. Let go of me. Please. They're trying to kill me. I screamed at the top of my lungs. We reached the back exit. There was no ambulance waiting, but a black van. Jacob was standing beside it. His face was cold and expressionless. He was holding something. A chloroform rag. I told you she wouldn't come quietly, Jacob said to his mother. The two of them grabbed me. I struggled, kicked, and bit, but my strength was failing. Jacob started to bring the cloth to my face. Stop right there. A calm but commanding voice cut through the chaos. Jacob and Carol froze. At the end of the alley, a man in an impeccable suit stood calmly. He was not alone. Behind him were two uniformed police officers. "Who are you?" Jacob shouted, still holding me. "I'm Alexander Vance," the man said. "I'm the attorney for the late Richard Franklin, and I represent my client, her." He pointed to me, who had just informed him that Jacob and Carol were attempting to kidnap me. Carol laughed. "Nonsense. This girl is my son's wife. She's hysterical. Probably ill." "She might be," Alexander said. "But her illness had the good fortune to send me a complete copy of this medical journal." Alexander held up his phone, showing the photos I had sent of Jacob's journal pages. "And also a copy of the murder plot letter you wrote 20 years ago, Mrs. Reed." The color drained from Jacob's and Carol's faces. "We received Miss Franklin's call," Alexander continued, his voice now icy. "And we tracked the phone. But we also received an emergency package from Dr. Hayes with all the medical evidence, including the MRI results of the object in my client's uterus." Dr. Hayes stepped out from behind the policeman, her face tense, but determined. "Jacob," Alexander said. "As a doctor, you know what medical malpractice is. But as a conspirator, you just made a fatal error. You wrote it all down." The two police officers moved forward. "Jacob Reed, Carol Reed, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to kidnap, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Jacob let go of me. He knew it was over. But Carol didn't. With an animalistic scream, she lunged at me, no longer caring about the baby or the key. "If I can't have it, neither can you." But it was too late. The police already had her restrained. Jacob stood still, defeated by his own arrogance. I swayed, nearly falling. Alexander caught me. "Lucy," he said gently. "I'm Alexander Vance, your father's lawyer. You're safe now." I looked at the man, then at Dr. Hayes. My allies had come. I had made it. And at that exact moment, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. It wasn't from Carol's grip. This was different. I looked at Dr. Hayes with terrified eyes. "Doctor," I gasped, "I think my water just broke." I clutched my belly, a sharp pain that had nothing to do with fear tearing through my body. Amniotic fluid soaked my legs, creating a pool on the grimy alley floor. The baby was coming. Now. In the middle of this chaos, with my husband being arrested and handcuffed. Carol saw the pool at my feet. Her hate-filled eyes suddenly transformed into a terrifying focus. "The baby," she shrieked. "The key is being born." She began to struggle with inhuman strength, dragging the officer holding her. "Jacob, get the baby. Get the key." Jacob, in contrast, was paralyzed. His face was ashen, not from the arrest, but from the sight of Alexander. He had seen his journal on Alexander's phone. As an expert manipulator, he knew when the game was up. The cold calculation in his eyes showed he had already abandoned the plan and was starting to calculate his sentence. But Carol hadn't. For her, it wasn't over. "Coward!" She spat at her son. "After everything I sacrificed. Get him. That's enough." Alexander's calm voice cut through the air. "Officers, get them in the car. Get them out of this area." The second officer helped his partner, dragging a still screaming Carol and a deathly quiet Jacob away. As they passed me, Carol glared with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Lucy. You'll never enjoy that inheritance." Jacob said nothing. He just looked at me with no remorse in his eyes, only a cold void that was somehow far more terrifying than his mother's rage. "Lucy." Dr. Hayes's voice brought me back to reality. The doctor was already kneeling in front of me, ignoring the chaos, her professionalism having taken over. Lucy, listen to me. You're in shock and you're in labor. The contractions are coming too fast. It hurts. I moaned, leaning on Alexander. The extreme stress brought it on. We can't deliver here. Dr. Hayes looked at her small clinic. And we can't go back in there. It's not sterile, not equipped for this. She looked at Alexander. We need to get her to a major hospital, now. Alexander nodded. I'll call an ambulance. No time, Dr. Hayes said. Look at the interval of her contractions. 2 minutes. This is going to be fast. Use that police car they took them in. Tell them to put the sirens on. Alexander thought quickly. Too risky. We don't know if they have anyone else out here. We'll use my car. It's armored. A relic from your father, he said to me with a small, grim smile. He really was paranoid. Everything moved quickly. Alexander lifted me, and I cried out in pain as another contraction